Um, it's so important for us to understand the type of work that we need to do. The question today is, what's your work ethic? Now, you've heard of that word work ethic before, I'm sure. People often tell you about your work ethic at your job. Your job is what is rating your performance. Now, your performance is based on what you're able to show to your employer. Your employer sees you, they watch you, and then they write down how you do. You sit down and you have an evaluation. I used to like and dislike those evaluations because sometimes I could have a bad day, and I could come in and I could say to myself, you know what, I don't want to work today. I don't want to do nothing today. I just want to be lazy. I don't want to give no effort today. I'm just going to sit and do nothing, right? I could say that, and that's just what it is. But it could be the moment that I say that, the moment that I do that, that when once I do that, my employer will write it down in their list. And then I know that once we have our evaluation, they're going to focus on that one day that I was off. They're going to focus and say, well, everything else is great, but, you need to do better when it comes to this. And I'm saying to myself, well, the only reason why you're saying that is because the one day that I wasn't in the mood to do any work, the one day that I wasn't feeling it coming to work, that's the day that you wanted to pay close attention to me. But that's how it always is. That's how it always is. But it's one thing that we have to understand and realize is that when it comes to how we show our work, how we are performing, we have to perform and show our work to everyone around us. We have to be able to show others just how much our work is dependent on how we feel. We have to be able to display that work. We have to be able to show that work. See, you could talk a good game. You could say this, that, and the third, but if you can't back it up with your work, if you can't back it up with whatever you're giving out, then that's a big problem. Because then you're not doing anything to make anybody feel any certain way about you. You're not doing anything to prove what you've been saying about yourself. In fact, you're making things a lot difficult because of the fact that you're not displaying your work as you're saying you should. The Bible talks about a whole lot of things as it relates to your work ethic. The Bible just talks about a whole lot of effort that needs to go into your work ethic. If your work is not going to match your efforts, then maybe you're doing something wrong. Because you could say, I am going to be doing this and I'm going to be doing that, but if it comes down to the point of whether or not you're going to be able to display that and show that, and you say, well, I was just talking, I was just making it up. See, we have a lot of people in society who does that, who says all these different things to put people on their side, that says they're going to make these type of changes, to say they're going to do this, to say they're going to do that, and they get everybody on their side, and they get everybody excited for whatever they're about to do. They get everybody hyped to what they're about to do, and then all of a sudden, they do none of the things that they said they were going to do. And when they're sitting in the chair of power, they don't do anything to display that power. They don't do anything to make real change. They just want to say that they got in the seat and they're in the seat. Now, you could go through history saying that it doesn't matter what I do or what I'm able to show for my work. You people have put me in the position that I am today, and you haven't even seen me work. That's how society is. Society often rates people based on their work. See, society often sees people based on their work. If they're able to show their good work, if they're able to display their work, then it's not a matter of, okay, well, we're not going to be able to focus solely on your work. We're not going to be able to look at these things that you're doing because we see everything that you're showing us. We see everything that you're trying to display. But if you're not the one, not the one, but if you're not doing that, if you're not showing that, if you're not displaying that, then that's something called false advertisement. But this morning, we're going to take a look at some things that I want us to figure out and to understand the question for the day. Where's your work? Where's your work? Let's pray. Father in heaven, we want to thank you, Lord, for giving us this opportunity this morning. Lord God, we just want to come to you this morning with emptied hearts, emptied minds, filled with the Spirit. Father God, I know we've made mistakes. I know I've made mistakes in my life, dear Father God. In the last 24 hours, dear Lord, I've made mistakes. But Lord, I know that you will forgive me. I know that you will refresh me. I know that you will restore me. So Lord God, I just want to ask you to be that God in my life. To lift me up. To strengthen me. To guide me. To heal me. Lord, we ask you for your healing this morning. Healing of our souls, healing of our bodies, healing of our minds. Continue to, dear Lord, to strengthen us. Open up our hearts. Continue, dear Father, to help us to grow each and every day. That we will continue to look to you for wisdom and guidance. Lord God, you are worthy of all praise, and I thank you, Lord, for giving us your mercies, allowing us this opportunity, dear Lord. Father God, as we continue to focus on your word, I ask you, Lord, that you will continue to open our minds, open our hearts, help us, Lord, that we will understand the work that is required of us. We thank you, we love you, in Christ's name. Amen. Amen. I have never seen someone say to themselves that my work ethic is the greatest of all time. In fact, maybe I've seen one person who said that. It's very important that we realize and understand that our work ethic is a reflection of us. Despite what you would want to say, whether you like your job or you don't like your job, your work ethic is a reflection of you. If you are not able to display your work ethic to others, if you're not able to show your work ethic to those around you, if you're not able to truly embrace your work ethic, it can come out in your work. Your work will show and reflect what kind of work ethic you're putting out. If you're lazy, if you are a lazy individual, if you've been lazy your entire life, your work ethic is going to reflect your laziness. If you're a hard worker, if you had to work for everything in your life, then your work ethic is going to reflect your hard work. It's a reality in this country, in America, that we have a bunch of lazy workers. We have a bunch of people who don't want to lift a finger to do the job that they were hired to do. Some of us, they just want to sit around and collect a paycheck every single day because they know somebody in a higher office, because their parents are cool with people who work in the corporate offices. They want to sit around and just collect a check and do nothing. In my previous job, I encountered people like that on a day-to-day basis. See, I was always told as a young man that because of who I am, because of what I am, I had to work extra hard. I had to work twice as hard as the person who was given the privileges because of who they are and what they are. I understood that I had to work harder because I had to make sure I proved myself to everyone. So in my mind has always been telling me that I have to work harder in order for me to make a mark. Right? I was always told that I had to work harder. I was always told that I had to work smarter. I was always told I had to work longer. I was always told that I had to work as if it was my last day. And that was the thing. I had to work. At the end of the day, my work ethic was not going to be questioned because I knew that every day I came to work, I was on. I knew that every day I got to work, every day I stepped through those doors and I got to my seat and my hands touched those keyboards and my mouse is moving, they knew I was working. Despite some of the people who are around me who kind of sit back and was on Facebook all day and people who just kind of chit-chatted all day, I had to make sure that I was going to be focused. I had to make sure that I was going to keep my work ethic as work. And yes, there were some times that I was doing the same. I was on the Facebook clicking away. I was on YouTube checking out videos and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, my work ethic was not going to be questioned because of the fact that what I produced from my work ethic. See, I used to be an analyst. And as an analyst, we're given cases. So as you take up a case, you have to be able to complete that case within that same day, within maybe an hour to 2 hours. So the threshold for us was 6 cases per day. That was the threshold. We were supposed to be able to do 6 cases per day. And for me, I said to myself, 6 cases are not enough because if I do the 6 cases, I'm going to be finished by midday. And I want to be able to show that I can do the work because once it comes time for them to do some cuts, I want to show them and want to make sure that when they look at my name, they say, okay, well, let's see everything that is under Zams. All right, so instead of the 6 cases that he's supposed to do per day, he does about 10 to 12 cases. All right, so as far as the social media piece is concerned, he is all over social media. We do not have an issue with social media between the hours of 8 to 5 p.m. And that's because Zams is working. Zams get in and he's working everything. He's working the Facebook stuff. He's working Twitter stuff. He's working third-party stuff. He's working everything under that board. All right, now let's look at actually meeting with the customers or talking to customers directly. We always send Zams. So Zams is the one that always goes down there and speaks to them because he knows how to talk to people. He's a people person. He knows how to communicate. And all these things, I know that they can check off my name because that's the type of work I brought to the table. Now, when it comes to you, you might be at your job right now. You might be saying to yourself, you know what? That's me. I do that. I do a lot of work. I do a lot of effort. And some people, they just kind of coast by. And that's not fair. Yes, you're absolutely right. That's not fair. But guess what? It's all about your work ethic. And at the end of the day, you will be measured by the work that you put out. You will be remembered by the work that you put out. You may not think you'll be remembered. You may not think that anybody is watching you. But guess what? There are some people who are watching you. And there are some people that's going to say that. Because I can guarantee you, when people look back and they say, you know what? Who was the best worker that you ever worked for? Or you ever worked with? Oh, you know what? Yeah. That lady has such a great work ethic. She came to work every single day with a smile on her face, and she got right to work. She didn't waste any time. She knew exactly what she had to do, and she did it. She was even able to converse with us when we wanted to talk, but she was able to go right back to what she had to go through. And it's all about, once again, it's all about your work ethic. If your work ethic is on top of what you got to do, and if your work ethic is strong, then you do not have to worry about anybody questioning your work habit. Nobody's going to question you because everybody is seeing what you're doing and they're believing what you're doing because what you're doing is something important. What you're doing is you are sticking close to your work ethic. But what happens when your work ethic does not reflect how you feel? What if your work ethic is affected by those around you? What if your work ethic is stopping you from reaching your potential because you're too busy looking at other people and their work ethic? The minute you start to lose sight, the minute you start to focus on other things and on other people, then that is the moment that you realize that you are not going to be able to perform to the best of your abilities. You will not be able to perform and to show yourself as acceptable as a worker. Those are the moments that you will start to fall away and you will start to lose sight of what you have to do. But this morning, I want to remind you and I want to encourage you that it's not about what other people are doing. It's not about the people that are around you that's going to dictate your work ethic. It's about the type of work that you put in and the honest day that you have. If you're able to go to work and leave out of work, you punch your clock in, you punch your clock out, you can walk out of the job and say, you know what, I did a great job today. I did my job today. I did it to the best of my abilities. Now, you might go through your entire time working for an employer and your own employer will never come up to you and say, great job, good job. I remember there were moments where I was saying to myself, you know what, I'm doing extra work to make someone else look good. And when they take the credit for the work that I've done and they get the pats on the back, I can just jump up and say, yo, man, you know you don't deserve any of that because I'm the one who did all that work. You just put your name on it. But that's not what I'm about, right? As long as I know that I did a good job, I know that I will be rewarded someday. I know that someday everything will kind of line up for me and everything will fall into place. But I have to wait on that. I cannot rush that. I cannot get in front of that. I have to wait on that. And that's the one thing about God. Sometimes you have to wait on God, but once you wait on God and once you're patient with God, then everything will fall into place. Everything will line up perfectly for you. But you have to be able to wait. You have to be able to sit back and allow God to do his job. You have to be able to sit back and allow God to work for you. But oftentimes we try to work ahead of God. The moment that you work ahead of God, that's the moment that you are realizing that you are working from behind. It's all about your work ethic. What kind of work are you putting in? What kind of time are you spending in the lab? What kind of effort are you showing? What are you doing to show people and to display to people and to remind people just the type of worker that you are? See, one thing about me that no one can say does not exist is my work ethic. So before we get into the word, let me describe how my day usually goes, right? Now, for those who, most of you should know, since May, I was let go from that same job that I worked my butt off and showed and displayed my actions and my work ethic to. But you know, sometimes your work ethic cannot trump politics. But that's a story for another day. So, my day-to-day goes as follows. Wake up at 5:30. Pray a little bit. Wake up again at 5:45. Pray a little bit. Freshen up myself. Open up the broadcast. And this is a good day, a on point day. Start the broadcast at 6 a.m. Finish the broadcast by 8 a.m. Right? After that process is finished, then I'm working on all the editing stuff that I have to work on for the broadcast. Then I'm delivering the message on the daily devotional quotes that I put up on my social media. I'm putting that on my social media sites. After that process is complete, then I'm going to be reading my own personal devotion. You know, I got to read my personal devotion, right? So I'm focused on my personal devotion. Once that personal devotion is over, then I have to get into my work. So I wear many hats right now. I have my own business, right? My business is called Zams Bregos. Zams Bregos. I make Lego brooches, BR brooch, EGO, Lego. So Brego. All right. So I'm doing that. That's what I'm doing right now. That's what I'm working with. So I design Lego brooches. I'm designing them for a lot of people. Oftentimes I have a lot of orders that I'm filling out that I have to fill, and there are times that I have special orders. So some of the special orders that I've been working with is dealing with for celebrities. I'm still waiting on a few to get back in touch with me, but so far I've sent a lot of my stuff out to different celebrities, and I'm kind of working those angles, working those places, and things are shaping up slowly, but it's shaping up. So that's what I'm doing for most of the day. I stop, I eat breakfast, I come back to it. After I come back to it sometimes, and I also have a YouTube channel. I have two YouTube channels. I have one Clubs Ministry that we're doing right here, and I also have another one, That Comic Show, where I talk about comic book movies. So that's my passion. That's what I like to do. So recording and editing takes a whole lot of time. It takes up most of my day, to be honest with you. Just filming and editing. So I'm doing that from time to time. Oftentimes when I'm home, I don't have time to even sit down and watch TV. I'm too busy doing this, that, and the third. So once I do all that stuff, let's say this is around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right? I'm done building and working on my website. I'm done editing and stuff like that. I still have more to do. I end up waiting until the 4 o'clock hour, and I get up and I go to the gym. I have to go to the gym. I have to stay in shape, right? I have to exercise. So I go to the gym. I'm in the gym for about an hour. I come back out, take a shower, eat lunch and everything like that. Well, late lunch, I usually do. I eat a late lunch, and then I'm going back to work. And I don't stop working until, I would say, maybe around 9 o'clock. So honestly, my day starts from 5:30 to 9 p.m. every day. And I'm working every day. And I'm doing all these things because I'm trying to build my foundations. I want to secure my foundation, because I would never know if someone wants to see what I do and say, hey man, I want you to come aboard my team. Hey man, I want you to do this for me for a living, and I will pay you handsomely to do that. That would be a great thing. All glory will belong to God. But until something like that happens, I want to make sure that I am focused on the work that is in front of me. I want to focus on what I have to do and have to display. And that's the type of work ethic that I have. Just because I'm home all the time doesn't mean that I am not working all the time. There's not been a day since I've been off of work, off of a corporate job, that I have been sitting at home and I said I'm not going to do nothing all day unless it's the weekend. If it's not the weekend, there was no day from Monday to Friday that I'm sitting here and I'm saying to myself, oh, you know what, I'm just going to watch TV all day. That's not something that I subscribe to. That's not something that I do. Why? Because I want to make sure that my work ethic is the same as it was when I was working for a corporation. I want everything to be the same. Salute, man. So I want everything to work the same way, because that's just how I am. Now, this all goes back to when I was a child. My father is a hard worker. He is an immigrant that came here from the Caribbean, from Jamaica. And since he was in Jamaica, he was a hard worker, because he had to work to provide for his mother and his siblings, right? He had to be the father in the household. So he had to work from a young age. He left school at a young age. He had to work from a young age. So as my father would work and he would display and to show his work ethics, he came to America, and it's very unfortunate, and sometimes talking about it gets me emotional, because all the hard work and dedication that my father did back in the Caribbean, he should have been in a better position when he got to America. But in America, it's all about your education and who you know, not exactly what you know and how you can perform. It wasn't about that back in the early 80s. So back in the early 80s, my father had to get the positions that were available to him because of his level of education, not necessarily how he worked. And my father was consistently a great worker. He would always be acknowledged for the fact that he's done good work. He was always given those pat on the back. He was always given little plaques. They acknowledged and they knew that he was a great worker, but his pay never reflected the type of work that he put in. And for my father, he had every right to say, you know what, I'm not going to be taken for granted all the time, so I'm leaving. My father could have left at any point. My father could have walked away at any point, but because of the fact that he had a wife at home, and because of the fact he had children, 2 of which wasn't his, but he had children, myself and my little brother, at home, he continued to go to work every single day and perform admirably. He wanted to make sure that he performed and everybody was able to see the type of worker that he is. Everybody that he talks to now can never say that my father didn't come to work and he didn't work his whole heart. He didn't work with all of his heart, with all of his passion, because he was a hard worker and he wants to make sure that his work ethic will always shine despite what others may say. And that was the same ethic that I took up for myself, because I wanted to make sure that I was going to work and work to the best of my ability. I wanted to make sure that my job knew that they were going to be losing out on someone special when they decided to let my department go. They had to realize that this was going to be a huge blow for them because of the type of worker that I am and the type of personality that I brought to the floor. But it's all about your work. So the question is, where's your work? So we have to get into the word in order to find that out, right? We're going to be looking at Ephesians 6 today. We're going to be turning to Ephesians 6, all right? Ephesians 6, verse 5 to 9. That's our verses of focus. That's our section of focus, all right? Now, we're going to be taking a look at this, and I'm going to go through each verse. We're going to break down each verse. I'm going to read it out first, and then we're going to break down each verse. That's how we go through this. That's how we're doing this, all right? So once again, the word of this morning is coming to us from Ephesians 6, verse 5 to 9. Ephesians 6, verse 5 to 9, and it says, Bondservants, obey your earthly masters with fear and trembling, with sincere hearts, as you would Christ. All right, bondservants or slaves, right? Obey your earthly masters with fear and trembling, with sincere heart, as you would Christ. Now this particular verse is subjected to its time that it was written. It's not subjected to the time now, because we are not slaves, we are not bond servants anymore. However, we do have a earthly responsibility to obey certain rules and certain regulations, certain leaders that are put in place. It's very unfortunate, it's very frustrating that despite the type of person that he is, we have to respect and honor the president because of the title of his role. And because he is in the title of the role, by default, we have to do the same for the actual person. And that's just what it is. Now, there are judges. Judges, we have to do the same thing. We have to obey judges because when we're inside of the courtroom, they have all the power granted to them by the state, by the government. So we have to be able to see them and not be upset at them or not be frustrated or unruly. We have to be able to realize that where we are and what we're doing and what we're saying can affect our outcome. Verse 6 says, not by the way of eye service or people pleasing, but as bondservants of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart. Now, we're starting to open this up a little bit, right? Now, the first verse, we were talking about bondservants obeying the earthly masters with fear and trembling, with sincere hearts, as you would Christ. Now, we're given a description of what a bondservant does. Now, what a bondservant does, we're seeing here, or a slave is doing, is obeying their earthly master, and they're obeying them with fear and trembling. When they have fear and trembling, that means that they are afraid of their earthly master. They are afraid of the outcome that would happen if they decide to disobey their earthly master, right? And it also says that while you're in fear and trembling, also obey them with a sincere heart. Make sure that your heart is fully sincere when you are going to obey your master. And even though it's very frustrating to you at times to obey such a disgusting and despicable person, understand that it's okay because there is a different master that you need to serve as well. There is a better master that you need to serve as well. And because you're going through this earthly turmoil, it's not forever. It's not going to be for a long time. So I want you to still obey the people that are put in place for you, but also remember who you're really serving. So this is what we're looking at with verse 6. And it says, not by the way of eye service or people pleasing. Eye service meaning watching and gazing and looking at the person, making those eye contacts, making those eyes look at them to make sure that they see that you're looking at them. And then when you're looking at them, your eyes are like this and you're just like, you're admiring everything that they're doing. That's what eye service is. People pleasing, not by stroking somebody's ego because it's going to make you feel better, because it's going to put you in a better position. When you're not stroking someone's ego, you should be willing to pay attention and to figure out and to realize that it's not all about people pleasing. It's about your work ethic. And there are some people who do too much people pleasing as opposed to working. And because they do too much people pleasing as opposed to their working, then it's really obvious, it's very obvious to me that what they're doing, they're just stroking someone else's ego. But as bondservants of Christ, doing the will of God in your heart. So remember the attributes of a bondservant. Now you can apply those attributes to Christ. When it comes to Christ, we should obey Christ as our master with fear and trembling. See, but that fear and trembling part, I don't really like that fear and trembling when I'm talking about Christ, because there's nothing that we need to fear nor tremble about when it comes to Christ. Even though the Bible says, fear the one who could destroy both flesh and the soul. Fear the one who could do that, yes, but also we must love that one because of the fact that we know that he can do all those things to us, and yet still he still loves us, and he still came to save us. But it says, as bondservants of Christ, doing the will of God in all your heart. So make sure your heart is fully in tune with what you have to do for God. Make sure your heart is fully engaged in where you have to go when it comes to serving God. Make sure your heart is where it needs to be when it comes to what you have to do to serve God. Verse 7 says, rendering services with a good will as to the Lord, not to man. Interesting perspective now on what we're seeing here. It says rendering service with a good will as to the Lord and not to man. So make sure we are seeing here, what we're seeing here is that we should be looking to God, and we should be looking to serve God and not to serve man. So I like how the beginning of this verse is saying to the bondservant to obey the earthly master. But once we get to 7, it's saying render your services with a good will to the Lord and not to man. So even though a bondservant may have a slave master that is ruling them, it's not about what they are given to them as far as their service, but you are to render your service and good service to God. Now, again, it always goes back to your work ethic. What kind of work ethic are you looking to display? What kind of work ethic are you looking to show? What kind of work ethic are you looking to fully put on when it comes to those who are around you, when it comes to those who are in front of you? Are you showing yourself to be a good worker? Are you showing yourself to be a bad worker? What are you displaying and what are you showing? Those are some of the questions that we need to ask ourselves, and those are some of the things that we need to see for ourselves. But the Bible says right here that when you are rendering your service for good, make sure that you're rendering your service with all your heart. Do not half-step what you got to do. Do not put on half of what you got to put on. Make sure that you're putting on your full work. Make sure your work is fully committed to God. Make sure your work is fully understood and that you're fully engaged with what you have to do. See, sometimes we tend to forget that God has been in control, and he has always been in control. And because God is in control, and because God is looking for the best interest for us and looking for the best interest for you, we are advised and we are able to see exactly what it is that God has been designing and what God has been doing just for us. One thing that I've always realized, one thing that I've always understand when it comes to what God has been doing, what God has been showing us, is that our work ethic has to reflect exactly what God has been designing for us. Our work ethic has to reflect the good that God has been showing us, the good that God has been revealing to us. Our work ethic has to match that. If our work ethic does not match the services that we're giving to God, well, then the question is, what kind of service are we giving to God? What kind of services are we giving to God? What kind of services are we displaying to God if our work ethic comes into question? What I don't realize and what I don't get is why everybody, not everybody, some people tend to focus on the wrong things when you're trying to deliver the right message. Some people like to focus on things and they don't see what's in front of them. They don't see the bigger picture. Sometimes you have to just step aside and allow God to do its work. Now, if God's going to do his work and do what he has to do, you have to get out of the way. Because if you're asking the questions that doesn't make any sense, if you're asking the questions that just doesn't work for this situation and what we're doing here, then maybe you need to reevaluate your work ethic as a whole. Because if you do not reevaluate your work ethic, if you do not reevaluate what you're doing and who you are, then maybe it's best that you stop, you pray about it, and you focus up. Because guess what? This message, this ability that we have right now in this world during this time is not going to be around forever. So when the time that we cannot do this anymore, the time that we are restricted from doing these things, you can't say, man, I didn't understand the message because I was too busy asking questions that didn't have anything to do with what we're doing here. It's all about your work ethic. Now, if this is a reflection of who you are, if you're being reflected right now, you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're seeing what kind of work ethic that you're showing, what kind of work that you're displaying, then you have to sit and evaluate that for yourself. Because at the end of the day, people are going to rate you based on your work ethic, but you are the only one who could change your work ethic. If your work ethic is a person of laziness, then people are going to say that you're lazy. And if it doesn't bother you, and if you're okay with that, well, then guess what? Maybe it's best that you don't have to be in this position because you have other people who are willing to put in the hard work, willing to put in more hours, willing to put in more time, willing to drive further, willing to go the distance so that they can make sure that their job performance is to the best of their ability and then some and even higher. And if you are not the one that's going to do the same, then you need to step down, step away. But we live in a society where people are rewarded for the things that they have done rather than the work ethic that they display. Sounds different, right? Or it sounds the same. But think about it real quick. If someone is doing something that others is not willing to do, and they are now moving into different positions, I don't want to put two and two together, but this is how some of the corporate structure is designed. Or you want to get ahead, you know what to do. And it's unfortunate because I've known so many people, I've known so many stories of people who have done certain things to get ahead. And it's not about the work ethic that is getting them ahead, it's about what they're doing to get them there. It's unfortunate, but it's also the truth. Your work ethic has to reflect your attitude. Your work ethic has to reflect your attitude. If your attitude does not reflect your work ethic, if your attitude seems to be a problem for you, if your attitude pulls you away, then it's quite clear. It's quite clear that you have bigger issues than just your work ethic. It's very clear that you have bigger problems than your work ethic. me ask a question. What is considered to be your greatest work ethic? What do you consider to be your greatest work ethic? That's a question to ask yourself. See, yesterday when I was out bowling, I'm part of a bowling league, right? And last week I went out and I bowled. I didn't bowl so great. I think the highest I hit was around maybe 120 something. It was about 120 I bowled. But the rest of it was low. And it was very frustrating. I remember last week it was very frustrating because we were bowling against two individuals. And the two, and the one of them was pretty good, but the other one was a clear professional, right? And the other one was, the way that he was bowling to go for 300. He was bowling strike after strike after strike, and it was just so easy for him. And I was saying to myself, well, why is he's so turned up right now, And I was saying to myself, I have to perform better for my team, and I just wasn't connecting. Like I would bowl, I was bowling eights, I was hitting 8 to 9 pins consistently. Every time I bowled and it looked like it was going to be a strike, it was not a strike. It didn't even, the 10th pin didn't even fall over. And then when I aimed for the 10th pin, for whatever reason, I would either miss it by just a hair or I would be completely off. And it was just frustrating to me and it was getting me very upset. So I said to myself, all right, you know what? I have to do better. I have to be better. So the end of the night, like I said, we didn't do so well. As a team, we kind of held our own, but, we still kind of, I didn't perform. So because of my performance wasn't great, I was in this situation. So I ended up going to practice. I started practicing for myself. So I was bowling and I was trying to get a better grip of what I'm doing now, because now I'm starting to switch balls and everything like that. And as I was doing that, and as I was practicing, I didn't do so well in practice, but I started to get a nice little groove. So as I got to play yesterday, we played about 3 games. And the first game I did a great job. The 2 games I didn't do as great as the first game, but I was consistent in my efforts, And I was saying to myself, at the end of the day, it's all about my work ethic. It's all about the type of work that I showed, the type of work that I displayed when I was bowling. And when I was bowling and when I was actually performing, I was able to show my good work. And that was the time that my friend was telling me, she said, the best way to display your work is to make your work work. So my work was one thing, but I was putting my work to good works. And that was the one thing that I enjoyed doing. That's the one thing that I was doing, was putting my work to good work. And that's the one thing that God is asking for us to do, to put your work into good work. If you're able to show your work, and if you're able to display your work, and if you're able to deliver your work, then your work ethic will reflect your good works. You have to be able to allow your good works to display, your good works to show and to flow. See, sometimes for me as a broadcaster, it's all about the retention of people that I have. And what I seem to notice is that I have a revolving door of supporters. When I say that, it's mainly those supporters that is on my Live Me account. It's I'll get a person who says, "Oh, I was so blessed by the message. I'm gonna be here every single day." And I say, "Oh, praise the Lord! I'm so happy for you." And then the next day they're not here, and the next day, then the next day, then I don't see them for months at a time. I still pray for them. I still think about them, but I don't see them. Again, it's all about the work ethic, your work ethic. So for my work ethic, I have to continue to push on, and I have to continue this mission. I cannot stop this mission when I see that nobody's paying attention. I have to keep going, because there is somebody out there. If just one person is paying attention, if just one person is getting the message, if just one person is changing their lifestyle, if just one person is saying that they need to come back to God, if just one person is saying that I need to make things right, if one person is doing that, then my mission here is complete. And trust me, there are moments, and I know you've experienced these moments too, where it seems like nobody cares. And when you feel as though nobody cares, then you start to ask yourself, well, do I really care? And you have to ask yourself, you have to answer yourself, yes, I do care, because I want to see the best out of everything that I'm doing. I want to see this whole thing become successful. I want to see people's lives are changed based on what I'm doing here. I want to be able to show that I'm the greatest nurse that ever stepped foot in this office. I want to show that I'm the greatest worker who's cleaning up the bathroom floors and who is mopping up the floors. I want to be the best safety inspector because I want to make sure that the places that I go to inspect are safe. I want to be the best police officer so that way when people see me, they are not afraid and they are not thinking that I'm going to pull out my gun and shoot them because you have some bad police officers that are doing that. I want to change the narrative. I want to change the perspective of what people are seeing. So because I want to do that, I want to do a better job. I'm going to show that my work ethic is all about peace and security. That's what I want to do. That's what some policemen are doing. I want to be the best fireman. I want to be able to save people all the time, not just when I'm on the clock. I want to be able to save people. I want to be the best soldier. I want to go out into the field and I want to fight for my country. I want to make sure that my country remains safe and remains free. I want to help other countries that are now under bondage that can be liberated for us coming in and doing a good job. I want to be the best person that I could possibly be so that everybody who sees me, who crosses my path, who watches me walk by will see a different person in them and me. They will see a different person. They will say, man, I want to get to know this person. I want to know what this person knows because this person is always happy. And when I get the chance to talk to them about Jesus Christ and what Jesus Christ has done for me and what Jesus Christ has shown me and how far he has taken me and what he has brought me through and the times that Satan tried to attack me and Satan tried to knock me down and Satan tried to drag me through the mud and Christ came in and stepped in and told Satan to be gone. He put me up. He took me up. He cleaned me off. He changed my clothes. He put on new clothes on me. And now I am stepping out as a new person. I'm stepping out as a new individual, as a new human being. And because now that I'm stepping out and now that I'm able to see things from a different perspective, I can now share with everybody what God has done for me, what God has shown me, what God has created in me, and what God has given me. He gave me a new heart. And that's why it goes back to verse 7. Renders your service with a good will as to the Lord and not to man. Verse 8. Knowing that whatever good anyone does, this he will receive back from the Lord, whether he is a bondservant or is free. Don't think that your good works is going undone. Don't think that your good works is unseen. Don't think your good works are not mentioned. Don't think your good works is not observed. Don't think your good works is not shown. Don't think your good works Don't think for a second people are not seeing your good works. I have to catch myself. because what I'm saying resonates with me a lot. Because ever since I was young, I was always the one who had to make the first step forward. I was always the one that had to do it. I was always the one who had to display my good works. I was always the one who had to show who I was. I was always the one. I don't want to say that it was annoying, but it was something that I had to accept. I had to accept that I was always going to be the one to be the good person. I was always going to be the one to turn the cheek. I was always going to be the one to be the bigger person. It was always going to be me. And right now I'm in a situation where my good works have to be displayed. And I just pray that I learn something from the experience. I pray that I gain something from the experience. Sometimes we go through things and we don't learn nothing afterwards. That's the worst type of feeling. To go through something and not learn something after that. You don't gain any understanding. You don't gain any type of function. You don't gain any type of a different perspective. You don't gain anything from what you just went through. But you have to get to the point where your work is reflecting something that is within you. It's something is trying to be drawn out, and you are put in different positions. You are put in different scenarios to show that this work has to come out and show that this thing within you has to come out. And in order for that thing to come out, in order for that will to come out, in order for that push to be drawn out of you, you have to get to the point where you are focused and solely focused on doing the work of God. You have to be so focused on doing the work of God that you neglect anything else. But some of us ain't ready for that. So what we have to do, we have to continue to work at what we're working on, continue to work in our fields. But once you're still working on your fields and you're still working on the efforts that you got working on, you have to be still able to realize and to understand that God's work is always going to come first. Even though you have other work to deal with, you always got to look at God's work. And that's what we're seeing here. Masters, listen to this. Masters, this is verse 9. Do the same to them and stop your threatening, knowing that he who is both their master and yours in heaven, and that there is no partiality with him. In other words, and again, these words do not reflect what we're going through today, but we do have masters that are above us. We do have elected officials who are above us. And what it's saying here is that we should not be looking for those people to obey our every command, but we should look at their work ethic and what they are actually doing. We should be focusing on their work ethic and what they're displaying. We need to be looking at their work ethic. Some of us may be managers. Some of us may be employees. Whichever the case is, we have one master and we do serve one master. We serve God. God is our one and only master. But while we're here on earth, we also have to be able to serve each other. We have to be able to recognize each other and be able to help each other out in the times that we need to help each other out. We have to be able to look to encourage each other, to uplift one another. We have to be willing to show that God's love is within us and God's love is going to display outside of us. We have to be able to show God that he is our one and only ruler. And if we're getting to that point, if we get to that message, if we get to that understanding, that life will be so much better once we do get to it. See, this morning, I want you to find your work. I want you to look for your work. I want you to realize what your work ethic is. If your work ethic is to be lazy, then you know what? Be lazy. But get out of the way of the person who's going to work hard. Get out of the way of the person who's going to focus more on the work instead of just hanging out with friends. Get out of the way of the person who deserves to be recognized for their hard work and dedication. Get out of the way. Stay home. Play at home with your friends. Play at home with whoever. But get out of the way of those who want to work hard and go hard for what they believe in. get out of the way. Because at the end of the day, your work ethic is going to reflect the type of person you are. Your work ethic is going to reflect the type of energy that God has put within your system. Your work ethic is going to connect it. Your work ethic is going to be the same. So continue to be blessed by that inclination, by that good works that you display.